What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Guiding Keys, the story of Kingdom Hearts, presented by the Unlockables podcast. As always, I am your host. My name is Eric. I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in, wherever, whenever, in time and space you may be located. It means a lot to me that you're going to drop by and check out what is going on in the world of video games. In the case of this series, what is going on in the world of Kingdom Hearts. I have been your friendly guide through the incredible world and story that is Kingdom Hearts, and through the wonderful mind of series creator and director Tetsuya Nomura. We are getting into part 3 of Kingdom Hearts 3 today, and we are going to be continuing our adventure through the Disney Worlds. If you remember, in the last episode, in part 2, we began our adventure through the Disney Worlds, and I remember saying at the top of last episode that we were going to get through all the Disney Worlds, and then when I got through about halfway through my notes for the Disney Worlds, I realized that this episode was going to be way too long because we still had 4 worlds to go, and all the stuff that happens in between all the Disney Worlds to cover. So I made a last second audible at the end of last episode to split the Disney Worlds into 2 parts, similar to how I did for Kingdom Hearts 2. And Kingdom Hearts 3 is now looking like it'll be almost as long or maybe even longer than Kingdom Hearts 2, as it probably should be, because it has a lot of moving the storyline along to wrap up all these different plot points that have been started and kind of developed, especially over the last couple of games, being Dream Drop Distance and the mobile game, has kind of introduced a lot more complex plot threads into the game, as opposed to, Kingdom Hearts 3 just coming off of Birth by Sleep and what those games set up. So we're going to be covering the Disney Worlds today and finishing that out and getting to a point where we can conclude the story in part 4. I want you guys to bear with me a little bit today. I'm feeling not sick, but I feel like my allergies are in overdrive. They've been kicking my butt all day today. Spent a lot of time outside, and my nose is just like stuffy, and my throat feels a little bit congested. So just bear with me. I'll make sure to drink enough water to make sure it doesn't sound like nails on a chalkboard, and we'll get through this. So before we move on to the Disney Worlds proper, let me just kind of recap the things that we went through in the last part, the first couple of Disney Worlds. We actually started off in Twilight Town during the last episode. We kind of caught up with Hayner, Pence, and Olette, did some stuff there, and it was really there that Sora decided, while he was looking for the power of waking, that he was going to think of a way to return Roxas to this world. He might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone, find a way to get Roxas's heart out of him, and make him be his own person, because he's one of the people that Sora wants to save. So that trip to Twilight Town kind of kicked off that little mini arc of the story as they're trying to figure out a way to rescue Roxas. And after that, we went to 2 Disney Worlds. We went to the Kingdom of Corona, which is the movie Tangled, and we adventured with our good friends Rapunzel and Flynn Rider, who's actually named Eugene, and went through basically the story of the kingdom of Rapunzel in that world. We met a former but also current member of Organization 13 in Marluxia, who was originally in charge of Castle Oblivion, who was the main antagonist for Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. But of course, Sora did not remember him because of the events of Chain of Memories, and Marluxia reveals to Sora that Rapunzel is one of the new 7 princesses of Heart, and that the organization is looking for the new princesses in case our heroes can't gather the 7 guardians in time to clash with the 13 darknesses. That is really what's going on here. So that was really the important Kingdom Hearts thing to take away from Kingdom of Corona and the Tangled portion of that story. We then went to the Toy Box, which was the Toy Story world, met up with Woody and Buzz, and we discovered in this world the organization member that was antagonizing us in this world was young Xehanort, and he kind of mentioned that he pulled this world apart and kind of made a double copy of it, kind of how the situation was in Dream Drop Distance, kind of in Traverse Town, those worlds kind of having like 2 sides to the story. He pulled apart the world and made a copy, trapped Woody, Buzz, and their friends there, and the rest in the other world. And he was experimenting with how toys come to have hearts, how inanimate objects come to have hearts, as this would be useful to him and the organization in getting their last member, their 13th member, or filling out the rest of their ranks. That was kind of the idea. And Sora, Woody, and Buzz kind of handily shut down young Xehanort and kind of figure out what's going on there. And Sora leaves them on pretty good terms. Fantastic level, Toy Story Toy Box World. So that was kind of the young Xehanort thing that was happening there. We get some parts with Riku and Mickey in here. They're still in the Radiant Garden. They are on the path of Aqua's footsteps to try and find Terra, and also kind of working with Ienzo to kind of find out what's going on. And this is where Riku kind of brings up one of the things that he remembers from Chain of Memories that Sora doesn't, which is the replica program. And the replica program is related to Vexen, or Evan, one of the recompleted organization members. And he and Ienzo and them kind of figure out that, the replicas are these lifelike dolls that you can put hearts into and they become real people. So Vexen going missing is kind of concerning, because they all kind of surmise that, the organization could use replicas to catch the hearts traveling from everywhere in time to kind of fill out their ranks. And that's an aspect of time travel we haven't really touched on that actually will come into play during the second half of the mobile game story. Those are kind of the plot threads that were revealed to us. The organization is doing things with like the 7 Princesses of Heart. Young Xehanort's trying to figure out like connections between like hearts and inanimate objects, how those inanimate objects came to have hearts. And then this thing with the replicas is kind of going on in the background of our Disney adventures. And we see Vexen meet up with the new Organization 13. He says he doesn't care about being human again. He'll give up his humanity as long as he can continue his research. So we were kind of right on the money with that plot point there. The organization seems like they're going to be using replicas to kind of fill out their ranks here and catch everybody's hearts that are like traveling from all over these different points in time. So with that out of the way, let's dive into our first Disney World after coming off that organization cutscene, after coming off of the Toy Box level, and that is, of course, going to be the World of Monsters, Inc., which is simply known as Monstropolis. After that brief detour, we're back on our Disney adventure with Sora and friends. Despite having just left Pixar World, we're of course headed to this one, the City of Monsters from Monsters, Inc., which is of course Monstropolis. The gang finds themselves in front of the famous factory Monsters, Inc., sporting brand new monster forms to help them blend in. Again, really, really awesome forms for Sora, Donald, and Goofy, who look like monsters in this world. Actually, on my Funko wall to the right of me here, I have a couple of the Kingdom Hearts Funko Pops from the Monsters, Inc. world. There was like 2 editions. There's like an orange one that was like flocked, and then there was like a regular one that was flocked, which is like, makes them kind of furry. Furry Funko Pops, kind of scary to think about, but I digress. The forms in this world are really super cool. Like a lot of the worlds that Sora and friends go to, they have like really, really cool forms that Square Enix didn't have to like put all of the work into, but they did. And I think it just adds to the story and the atmosphere of some of the best design levels in the entire game. So after pondering their new forms, the trio of heroes decides to go into the factory and investigate what's going on in this world. Of course, upon entering, we immediately meet the main characters of Monsters, Inc., James P. Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully the Monster, and, of course, the famous Mike Wazowski, and they both just happen to have the little girl Boo with them. Remember the girl from the Monsters, Inc. movie that got loose in the monster world? We can tell by some exposition that this is post the movie Monsters, Inc., because Sully is in charge of the company, and they've given up using the scare power. That was the plot point of Monsters, Inc. was their world was powered by scare. They went into kids' rooms and scared them because Sully's in charge, and they've given up using the scare power, which they found that like funny and humor is more powerful to power their civilization. After a slight misunderstanding, Boo warmly greets Sora, and the group kind of gets to know one another, but this is short-lived as an enemy new to Sora, but familiar to Donald and Goofy and familiar to us, appear. And it's none other than the Unversed, who we haven't seen since Birth by Sleep. And side note, I think the Unversed are the perfect enemy for this world. Remember that one of the main plot points in Monsters, Inc. is that monsters scare kids and they harness the negative emotions via scream power to power their society. At the end of the movie, they find out laughter is more powerful. So having the Unversed, who are intrinsically tied to negative emotions is perfect for this world. It kind of fits the theme of Monsters Inc. It kind of fits the theme that Sully and Mike just kind of overcame in that movie, that these creatures would appear. It makes more sense than like the Heartless or the Nobodies. Sully and Mike jump into the fray to help our protagonists kind of clean up the Unversed. After the fight, Donald and Goofy rack their brains and they remember that they are called the Unversed, considering how both of them were around for the events of Birth by Sleep. They tell Sora that King Mickey fought the Unversed with the 3 missing Keyblade wielders, which are Terra, Aqua, and Ventus, the ones that they're searching for. So that's how that kind of ties in with that. After the ensuing events, Mike and Sully decide that it's time to end Boo's visit early and send her home. Sora agrees to help them in case the Unversed show back up. So they head to the scare floor to send her back, and Sully gives Sora the rundown on how they used to use scare power to provide energy, but thanks to Boo's help, they figured out that laughter is way more powerful. Upon reaching the scare floor, they discover an unpleasant surprise as the Unversed are just wreaking havoc in the area, and Mike spots Boo's door being sent back to the warehouse. So they take some time, they clear out the Unversed, and after clearing them all out, Mike calls more doors to the scare floor, and they hitch a ride on the doors as they return via the factory's rail system to storage to see if they can find Boo's door. Utilizing the rails and Boo's laughter to power doors to jump between, they make significant progress until they think they found Boo's door, a white door with pink flowers on it. But upon entering it, us, the player, we see that Monsters Inc. antagonist Randall was actually camouflaged against the door, making it seem like Boo's door with like the flowers and stuff. And with a sinister grin, he opens the door and pursues the gang, then confronts Mike and Sully, letting them know his plan to take over the company and utilize negative emotions to get what he wants, keying our heroes into the fact that he's clearly working with the Unversed. After taunting Sora to his face about working with the Unversed, he vanishes and tells them on the loudspeaker that he's basically taken over the entire factory. More determined than ever, Sully leads them into the factory to find Boo's door and defeat Randall. They manage to escape the power portion of the factory after they overload like a steel door. They have one more confrontation with Randall where he tries to summon like an Unversed from a steel container, which like doesn't really work, and he just kind of like fucks off, and they kind of continue to chase him throughout the entire Monsters Inc. campus. They all discover the Unversed just going wild, destroying the power infrastructure as helicopters from this world's emergency response team, the CDA, fly around overhead. Sora and friends, along with Mike and Sully's help, manage to drive off the Unversed, put out everything that's on fire, but as they try to push forward, more sections and infrastructure of the factory are like exploding, blocking them off from any way forward, all this kind of stuff. Boo comes in clutch and spots a downed pipe that they can use to continue their search, and sure enough, the pipe led to a cooling tank that let them out right by the door vault. How convenient is that? Randall returns one last time to like get in their way with the same type of steel container, but this time it glows with the Unversed emblem on it. The package begins to secrete like the slime and ooze that comes out of it, and it forms into this boss called the Lump of Horror, a massive entity of goo and ooze that sports some of like the metal components of its container, like on its arms and on its form as like armor. This is another fantastic boss fight that again takes advantage of Kingdom Hearts 3's larger level design and combat system to give us a fight that feels like flashy and huge. Out of all the bosses in all the Disney worlds, I think this one gave me the most trouble, even though I think it's a great fight. I just couldn't really wrap my mind around what was going on in the fight, and the Lump of Horror seems to not take as much damage as some of the other bosses that I've encountered. I don't know if that's like just my fault, I was under-leveled or wasn't prepared efficiently. I just found this one more difficult. Sora and friends defeat the Lump of Horror Unversed boss monster. They manage to corner Randall and send him through the door that they tossed him into at the end of the movie once again. But rather than destroy it, Sora uses his Keyblade to lock the door so it can never be used again. Which, again, kind of clever thing with Sora's Keyblade there. It's kind of lost that thing that was like a big deal about it in Kingdom Hearts 1, where it was like it can unlock literally any door, to just kind of being like a mystical sword weapon. So I'm really glad it was used in that capacity to kind of end this world. They manage to locate Boo's door and are just about to put her back when her door and a bunch of others start moving inexplicably towards the scare floor. The doors reach the scare floor and dock at their stations, and as Sora dismounts, he comes face to face with a hooded figure. the one that is responsible for all things unversed, as the theme for Vanitas begins to play ominously in the background as he slowly approaches. This moment is fucking bonkers because, remember, Vanitas looks identical to Sora considering he is Ventus's dark twin, as the same way that Roxas looks like Ventus and Sora's actual person. Vanitas, the dark side of Ventus, looks like Sora. This isn't their first meeting, however. They had a very brief meeting in Dream Drop Distance when Sora was in the Hunchback of Notre Dame world, and I'll insert their cutscene here because I love this cutscene where it's like Haley Joel Osment acting against himself, where he gets to be good boy Sora and just evil Vanitas, and it's just such a cool scene with that dichotomy.
Who are you?
Gotta say, that strange facade had me fooled at first, brother.
Wait a sec. Oh yeah, you were at the cathedral. And hey, who are you to call anyone strange?
Say, do we know this guy?
We haven't ever met in the flesh. I am Vanitas.
This is the part where you spout some mumbo-jumbo and disappear, right?
This whole world was powered by Scream. They converted the screams of human children into energy. And this very company was what made it all happen. It's as rich a source of negative emotion as we'll ever find.
For the last time, we already stopped doing that!
Did you? Then how do you explain all these canisters of surplus Scream? This facility was everything I could hope for, and I was lucky enough to find a pawn whose heart was darkened by thoughts of revenge.
You mean Randall?
All Randall ever cared about was winning. And this guy took advantage of that weakness.
My heart is made of just one thing, and the Unversed collected enough screams and sadness from those children to reconstruct it.
Yeah, and the whole time they were trashing our company in the process!
But even with all this negative emotion, my heart is still incomplete. I need something else. The half of me that sleeps on inside of your heart.
Vanitas!
Ventus. What a strange place to slither off to. You insignificant speck.
What are you talking about?
Oh, you wouldn't remember. When you were little, you formed a special bond with a boy named Ventus who joined with your heart.
Is he saying that one of the missing Keyblade wielders is inside Sora's heart?
How is that possible?
Now, you will return Ventus to me.
Vanitas mentions how the negative emotions present in the Monsters, Inc. world helped him return, but in order to be complete, he needs something else. He basically tells Sora that Ven's heart is inside of him, and after quickly batting aside Donald and Goofy, he has Sora at his mercy, ready to take Ven's heart from him. Before he can do anything, though, Sully gets the jump on him, grabs him in a vice grip, with both of his giant hands, paws, yeets him into an open door that Mike Wazowski provides, and they just toss that door inside another door, and then that door inside another door, and so forth, probably forming an interdimensional black hole that will soon destroy the entire world, and then they just shred that final door before they can get anything else out of Vanitas. After all that, they manage to find Boo's door and return her to the human world. Shortly after that, the gang says goodbye to Mike and Sully, who have some work to do to restore the factory. Okay, let's talk about the main important thing, probably one of the most important things in this game that happens in a Disney world. Sora gets to come face to face with Vanitas. Sora still doesn't know that Vanitas looks like him yet, so that reveal hasn't happened. But Vanitas finally tells Sora what we've known for basically like 7 or 8 years now since Birth by Sleep, that one of the hearts inside of him is Ven's heart. And this plays into the gummy ship intermission after Monstropolis right here. Back on the gummy ship with Sora, Donald, and Goofy, and Sora's starting to feel a bit frustrated upon learning that Ven's heart now resides within him, and that he seems to be the key to returning so many people back to the realm of light. Despite that, though, they still know that Aqua is the key to helping Ven, and again, Sora knows this. He makes a rash declaration that he wants to go to the realm of darkness. Donald and Goofy manage to talk him out of it, mentioning that neither Riku or the king would tell him how to get there, so that he can focus on his own mission. They're still trying to keep Sora on the path of finishing his own mission, despite the fact that Sora wants to make an impulsive decision and just go and do something now because he doesn't feel like he's making any progress. Sora's pretty disappointed. He grabs the gummy phone and is about to contact them anyways when it rings in his hand. He excitedly answers it, but is disappointed to see that only Ienzo is on the other line. Ienzo has an update on everything he's been working on. He tells Sora that even though Evan is still missing, they've managed to find some of his research notes about replicas, and that they're beginning to investigate that lead. Ienzo also tells Sora that he has deciphered more of Ansem's code that was recovered, and found a particularly interesting passage about Sora. Ansem notes that when he was working to wake Sora up in the events of Chain of Memories, he discovered the presence of other distinct hearts inside of Sora's. Not only are there hearts there, but also the memories are there as well, but they've been largely siloed off from one another by Sora's own heart. Ansem the Wise surmised that if the hearts and memories could be reconnected and provided with a suitable vessel, they could all be restored and be people again. Ienzo tells Sora he'll keep working on it, then hangs up, leaving our heroes to try and figure out who the hearts could belong to, because Ienzo mentions that there are 3 other distinct hearts inside of Sora. So one is Roxas. We know that we figured that out back in part 2, or Sora's known that for a long time. With the new information given to him by Vanitas, Goofy surmises that the other must be Ventus, but who is this third candidate inside of his heart, who is in addition to his own heart? I'll just let you guys know because this gets a little bit confusing later on. That would have to be Xion, because it's not made explicitly clear in the game. So I'm telling you now, it has to be Xion, because Xion's entire being was based off of Sora's memories and copying Sora's power. So it has to be Xion. After this gummy ship section, we get an interesting scene, and this is more of a flashback. We transition to a pretty quick flashback in the Realm of Darkness, and we see Master Aqua sitting on the shores of the Dark Margin with Ansem the Wise.
Tell me, will you stay here?
I can't shake the feeling that these waters touch another shore I've visited.
The Destiny Islands.
Oh, you've heard of them?
Yes, they are quite lovely. A far cry from this wasteland.
I'm staying. Someone will come for me.
These waters are the in-between of dark and light. Its shores the margins of day and night. They brought you and I together. So why not also you and another?
But suddenly they are interrupted as who should appear behind them but none other than Ansem, Seeker of Darkness. This is interesting because this is the first time we see in a scene Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, and Ansem the Wise. Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, basically the evil manifests of Ansem the Wise's apprentice, Xehanort, having conducted all of those experiments. So it's an interesting kind of moment that we get to see for the first time in Kingdom Hearts, a conversation between these two.
Master, I must have a word with you.
Master, so now you mock me.
Do you recall those experiments of the heart you bade me cease? Among the test subjects was a girl. She had lost her memory, just as I had. But you can reconstruct memories you did with Sora. I believe you have seen the girl's memories.
What is your question?
Where did you put the girl?
What girl?
Very well, if you won't tell me here.
I think you should go.
A lost guardian of light? You wait here.
Seeker of Darkness begins to mention about old tests of the heart and how there was a girl with no memories that they had encountered. Seeker of Darkness Ansem appears to be after Ansem's knowledge of how to reassemble memories, even though Naminé was the one that did that. Seeker of Darkness goes to reach for Ansem the Wise, but Aqua swats his hand away, jumping in between them, telling him to leave. Seeker of Darkness immediately recognizes her as a lost guardian of light and tells her to get out of the way to wait here for the king before sicking his dark bodyguard on her. Aqua attempts to fight back but is quickly overpowered and blasted into the waters of the Dark Margin as Ansem the Wise agrees to go with Ansem Seeker of Darkness willingly. Aqua begins to sink into the depths, and as she does, she teeters on the brink of consciousness as darkness just slowly starts to spread and consume her body. So we have to surmise that this takes place after Aqua's adventures in 0.2, but before Riku and Mickey go back into the Dark Realm to try and find her. This is why when Riku and Mickey get to the Dark Margin in part 1 or part 2, whenever we get to that, they can't find her. And that's why Mickey says his connection to her ends at the Dark Margin, that she's in an even deeper abyss, because Ansem Seeker of Darkness literally blasted her into a deeper abyss, and now it seems like she's just completely lost to the darkness. But that's all that becomes of that flashback. And there's some interesting things here as Ansem Seeker of Darkness starts to allude to Ansem the Wise's old tests, a girl with no memories that they had encountered. Why do they want this girl? Who is this girl with no memories? And we're not really sure. The only girl we remember from that time is, remember, Aqua met a young Kairi back in Radiant Garden when her adventures took her there. So that's the only thing I could remember. I didn't remember this scene as I was watching him and writing him down. So we'll have to see what becomes of this plot point as it goes on, because I don't know why he'd be looking for a girl with no memories unless there was something related to Xion going on here and Xion being one of their vessels, but I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to see how that plot point wraps itself up. We're back to another Gummy Ship intermission. We rejoin Sora, Donald, and Goofy on the Gummy Ship as they get a call from Chip and Dale. Chip and Dale communicate to them that the wizard Merlin is looking for them in regards to some book. He left to have a cup of tea without saying where, though, and Goofy uses his omnipotent powers to guess that where he would be, and that's just the bistro in Twilight Town, because there's nowhere else you'd go in the entire Kingdom Hearts universe to have a cup of tea. This is basically just an excuse to shoehorn Winnie the Pooh levels back into the game and back into the story. It's a world with a bunch of mini games. There's not really anything plot relevant that happens there. I don't really need to go through it. I'm not going to touch on it in terms of its relevance to the plot, because it doesn't really have any relevance to the plot. So we're just going to move on from there and move on to our next main Disney world. Longtime listeners of the show should recognize that music break in there. It is the overworld theme for Arendelle, or Frozen, the Disney movie Frozen. That was the main theme that I used, the main Christmas theme I used for, or the winter theme I used for my 12 Games of Christmas thing I did a couple years ago. So that's where that piece of music came from. That's a fun fact. If there's ever Unlockables trivia one day, put that one in the back of your cap to be able to answer that question. So yes, we've arrived at the big one, Disney's big cash cow for the last like decade, the biggest movie that they put out in probably the last decade, Frozen, Arendelle. And I gotta say, this is probably my least favorite of all the worlds. It just feels like the movie Frozen with Sora, Donald, and Goofy kind of in the background. The three heroes immediately dispatch some Heartless upon arriving, with Sora quipping about how cold it is because he's an island guy, when they see none other than Queen Elsa running across the freezing lake up into the mountains. They're worried about her. They're worried that she might need help, so of course they give chase. The trio manage to catch up to Elsa, who is determined to be by herself, but Sora tries to pour on his goofy friendship charm like he always does, although in this case, it doesn't work, as Elsa commands them to stop while blasting ice magic from her hands. Drawn to the surge of feelings, the Heartless appear, and Sora, Donald, and Goofy cover for Elsa while she takes cover. After defeating them, Elsa comes to thank them and opens up a little bit, displaying some more of her ice powers by defeating a Heartless and talking to them a little bit more. Sora tries to convince her to go back home, but she won't, saying that all she does is hurt people. She begins to walk off, and as Sora goes to give chase, a gigantic ice wall forms, cutting Sora off from her because she wants to be by herself. Of course, we can't allow for any single moment of downtime in any of those scenes. Who else should appear to bother us but another member of the organization, telling Sora to give it a rest and leave Elsa to the organization? It's none other than Larxene, one of the original members of the organization, the one who plotted with Marluxia at Castle Oblivion to overthrow the organization. But again, as similar to Marluxia when we met him, that was the only time Sora has ever seen Larxene, and those memories he had of Castle Oblivion are now gone. When Sora asks if she's new, she becomes incensed before remembering that Sora literally forgot everything. She tells Sora not to meddle, and using her lightning powers, destroys the ice wall, causing like a cave-in that traps Sora, Donald, and Goofy in like an ice labyrinth, which is a decent part of the level. They manage to escape, and they continue to chase Elsa up the mountain, knowing that the organization is up to no good. This is probably my least favorite part of the game. After they catch up with her, we are treated to Frozen's most popular song that they had to shoehorn into the game, of course, because it was a cultural phenomenon, as the entire Let It Go sequence from the movie is recreated in Kingdom Hearts 3. The only minor differences being that every once in a while the camera will like cut back to Sora, Donald, and Goofy, and it's kind of hilarious because it's like they're spying on her while she's singing this, what is supposed to be a powerful song, as Elsa comes into her own and uses her powers to create her ice palace. I really hate this. They don't go out of their way to shoehorn any other songs into any other Disney worlds across like the entire series, except for the Atlantica world in Kingdom Hearts 2, but that world was entirely designed to be like a music mini game. So we got some of the Little Mermaid songs in there, but this is just kind of egregious. Like, I'm pretty sure Disney was like, you have to include this in here because I feel like this was just a Disney call. And just to kind of cut away from Elsa singing the song to see Sora, Donald, and Goofy just kind of creeping on her in the background is hilarious. After the song, she builds her ice palace. Sora is still determined to go and say hi, but once again, Larxene appears to block their path. Sora is like tired of the organization showing up. He asks Larxene what is going on, and Larxene admits that Elsa may be one of the new Seven Hearts, a new princess of Heart, and the organization, as we know, has a vested interest in finding all of those in case the Guardians fail. Larxene says she can't be sure yet. Elsa's inner struggle with herself and her powers has clouded her heart, and depending on how she feels about them, that may determine whether her heart is light or darkness. Not wasting any more time, Larxene attacks the heroes once again, summoning a ferocious lightning storm that blasts them off the top of the mountain. Sora, of course, completely unfazed. He's determined to climb back up the mountain and again talk to Elsa. When an avalanche comes racing down the mountain, they try to escape on Goofy's shield but are overtaken. And when they come to, they meet the rest of Frozen's cast. And this is, of course, Olaf the Snowman, Sven the Reindeer, Kristoff, and, of course, Anna, Elsa's sister. Anna? I think it's pronounced Anna in the movie, so we'll just go with Anna. The Frozen Gang explains how they're on their way up the mountain to see Elsa. Sora mentions how they know her as well. We get a little exposition as Anna kind of recounts the entire plot of Frozen so far to Sora, giving him some insight as to Elsa's actions as well. And again, another excuse for some more music and singing from this movie, as again, they kind of shoehorn a part of the "Do you want to build a snowman" song into this world. And again, it feels forced. It feels corporate. It feels IP. Like, I don't like it. Anna feels responsible for the way Elsa is feeling after the disaster of her coronation exposed her ice powers to everyone. And now she's determined to bring Elsa home and end this winter that Elsa unintentionally caused. After swapping stories, we get like this little mini game where we have to find Olaf's body parts because the Heartless smash into him. And when we do find them, the Heartless appear once again. Sora, Donald, and Goofy stay behind to handle them while Anna and the Frozen Gang head up the mountain to see Elsa. From here, the rest of the world kind of plays out like the end of the movie. Anna tries to convince Elsa to end the eternal winter. Elsa says she can't, and in her confusion and struggle with accepting her powers, she strikes Anna with ice magic, which begins to freeze her heart. Sora and the others are anxiously waiting outside when Elsa's giant snowman creation, Marshmallow, tosses Anna, Kristoff, and Olaf out of the castle, with Anna proceeding to enrage it further by tossing a snowball. Sora jumps in to allow the others to escape, and here we get a pretty cool mini boss fight with Marshmallow, which ends with our heroes getting tossed off of the mountain once again. After regrouping from yet another fall off the mountain, Sora, Donald, and Goofy notice a man carrying Elsa back to Arendelle, and while they appear to hesitate, wondering if he's helping, they quickly notice that the man has the aura of darkness emanating from him. This is Hans, but he doesn't really get a true role in this Kingdom Hearts story. He's just like a very minor antagonist. He's like the minor source of the conflict because I don't even think he has like any lines in the world. They rush to try and save her, and in the process end up befriending Marshmallow, her snowman creation of Elsa, who just wants to save her. And the big snowman is this world's party member, which is kind of crazy and out of left field, but I feel like out of all of the Disney worlds, this one feels the most overseen by Disney. The inclusion of 2 songs, the way they couldn't really deviate from the story too much, and it just feels like the movie Frozen with Sora, Donald, and Goofy kind of in the background, because this is Disney's baby. This is their biggest hit from like that period. So it feels to me that this world is kind of, I don't know if corporate's the right word. I don't know if like synthetic is the right word. It just, none of it feels good because it feels like their hands are kind of tied with what they could do. Anyways, on the way, they run into Kristoff, who has just returned from taking Anna back to Arendelle, and to Hans. He explains how Anna was struck in the heart by Elsa's ice magic, and the only thing that can save her is true love. True love is the only thing that can thaw a frozen heart. So that's why Kristoff took her back to Hans, who we know is evil. Sora is confused because he assumed that Kristoff and Anna were together, and a dejected Kristoff says he's nothing more than a guide. This is when a massive blizzard erupts from the heart of Arendelle. Kristoff runs off, and our heroes give chase, sensing that something is amiss. We transition to the scene on the lake, the famous ending scene of this movie. Hans tries to kill Elsa and end the eternal winter. Anna intervenes, becoming frozen solid and shattering Hans' sword to protect her sister. Sora and friends arrive on scene to find a frozen Anna and an unconscious Hans, who suddenly darkness begins to swirl around Hans, and it targets Sora, trapping them in a dark like arena dimension, and reveals one of my favorite design bosses in the game, Skull, which is like a Nordic looking wolf emblem heartless, inspired by the entity from Norse mythology that would one day swallow the sun in the end of days. And a lot of his attacks like reflect this inspiration. He's one of the coolest design bosses. He's like one of my favorite heartless bosses because it's just such a cool looking boss. But with Marshmallow's help, Sora, Donald, and Goofy managed to defeat this heartless. Elsa weeps for her frozen sister, but the love in her heart ends up thawing and restoring her. But before Sora can check on them, he's sequestered by Larxene, who has been keenly watching the events unfold. She's intrigued to have found not one, but 2 hearts of pure light in this world, with Anna and Elsa both being new princesses of heart. She then taunts Sora, saying that they have all their 13 darknesses, tells him to hurry up and find all the Guardians of Light if he wants them to leave the princesses alone. We basically get the conclusion to Frozen here. Elsa discovers that love is the key to her powers, and using this new understanding, she ends the eternal winter that has trapped Arendelle, giving us our happily ever after. So after the events of 2 Disney Worlds, after the events of Arendelle, we're going back to the Mysterious Tower with Riku, Mickey, and everybody else to kind of reconvene with Yen Sid to share their progress. Sora fills the King and Riku in on all the information they've gathered, including the organization looking for the new 7 hearts, the claim that the organization has their 13 darknesses, and the discovery that Ven's heart has been inside of Sora this whole time.
The organization claims to have their 13 darknesses.
Do we believe it's true?
I don't know. But there's something else they keep mentioning. They're after a new 7 hearts, which seems to be code for, let's go bother more princesses.
Well, as the original princesses of Heart's time for protecting the pure light has ended, they have passed the light to others. Our enemy must certainly be cognizant of this. If the new 7 hearts is what they wish to call them, so be it.
But Kairi hasn't passed on her power. Is she one of the new 7?
She must be. But still, she chose to wield a Keyblade and fight with us as one of the Guardians of Light.
Yeah.
We haven't found power yet.
Hey, at least we've tracked down Ventus. Vanitas told us that he's inside Sora's heart.
And so did Ansem the Wise in his data, so it almost certainly must be true.
Oh, whoa.
That's great! Now we can rescue Ven!
Maybe. Except Aqua's the only one who knows where he's hidden. We still have to find her first.
They also realize that now that they know where Ven's heart is, they can awaken him too when Sora gets the power of waking. The problem still remains of having to locate Aqua first, as she is the only one who knows where Ven is hidden. Perhaps spurred on by Ven's heart inside of him, Sora defiantly claims that he will go and rescue Aqua, again, saying that he wants to go to the Realm of Darkness, although he is very quickly chastised by Yen Sid, who tells him it's pointless to go without the power of waking. Riku encourages his friend to continue his path and to obtain the power of waking, and Sora reluctantly agrees only after telling Riku and Mickey not to try anything too dangerous. We transition to another scene, and this time it's another organization moment. After leaving our heroes at the Mysterious Tower, we get a very interesting discussion featuring some of the original members of Organization 13, starting off with Marluxia and Larxene, the original plotters of the organization coup, featured in the plot of Chain of Memories. Larxene jokes with Marluxia, asking him if he wants to pull another coup, when who else but Demyx should show back up. Timid little Demyx with his water sitar. I don't know why he's back in this game, but Demyx gives us a little insight into the organization, saying that he had effectively been brought back, but he's been benched since Vexen and his replicas had shown up, meaning Xehanort seems to be plotting to use replicas to place portions of his essence into, or at least to bring people back. And this pushes Demyx outside of the 13, even though he's like back. So they can just have more than 13. Like, what is the point of just having more than 13? I really just think this was an excuse to bring all these characters that everybody liked back. Luxord and Xemnas also show up, with Xemnas giving us even more insight to the original organization.
The first 6 members of the original organization were all apprentices to Ansem the Wise, and the 7th and 8th members joined thereafter. The 13th member was Roxas, a Keyblade wielder. So, what about you? How do you suppose I chose numbers 9 through 12?
Because our hearts are uber powerful.
Wrong. You have been brought together for another purpose.
What? So that we can rot away on the bottom rung?
Ugh. You're in too? What is this, organization rehash?
I happen to play an important role. No one benched me.
You were listening? So not cool.
One must hold one's cards as long as necessary.
What important role? That stupid box that Zigbar claims is real, but won't tell us a thing about?
You'll just have to ask Zigbar that. Now then, Xemnas, what is this purpose? You didn't invite us back for old time's sake.
You four are going to reveal your greatest secret. The ancient Keyblade legacy that slumbers within you.
He mentions how the first 6 original members of Organization 13 were the apprentices of Ansem the Wise. Numbers 7 and 8, who were Syx and Axel, joined shortly after for reasons that we're not really sure of. And then Roxas, who was brought on as a Keyblade wielder, joined later. So he asks the 4 why they thought he, being Xemnas, included them in the organization. Luxord, Demyx, Marluxia, and Larxene don't have an answer for us. But Xemnas tells us something that is interesting, something that makes these characters actually matter now, because for the longest time, we haven't been sure why these particular members of the organization were here. They don't seem to have a tie to the original Ansem and his apprentices thing that Xemnas brought up. But Xemnas tells them the reason why they were brought back, the reason why they were originally included, and the reason why they are included now. It is because of their connection to the ancient Keyblade legacy. His words specifically. And that's a scene that has a lot more gravitas that we'll explore. That scene actually becomes more relevant after you hear part 2 of the mobile game story. So we'll get into that during that story. We're off to another Disney World, and wouldn't you know it, Pirates of the Caribbean has returned. Our heroes return to the world of pirates with some really snazzy new pirate outfits. I love the design. Sora has a traditional like 3-pointed pirate hat and like a long coat, and Donald and Goofy are dressed like traditional deckhands with like bandanas. Again, Sora, Donald, and Goofy didn't have a pirate getup in the original Pirates level in Kingdom Hearts 2, and this one they do. And this world looks really fantastic despite not having a lot going on in it. It's got an interesting gimmick that makes it have like a lot going on in it, but we'll talk about that when it comes up. The plot of this Pirates adventure follows the plot of At World's End, the final movie in the original Pirates trilogy. The 3 find themselves on a vast ocean in the middle of the night. They're floating on a raft that pretty much immediately reaches the edge of the world and plummets over the edge, landing them in Davy Jones' locker. The plot of the movie happens largely in the background of our heroes running around and exploring the world. So I'll summarize the main points of what happens here, like I did with the other couple worlds, because this world's like the inverse of Frozen, where it's like it feels like Frozen, the movie, is happening with Sora, Donald, and Goofy in the background. This world feels like Sora, Donald, and Goofy are running around doing a bunch of crazy shit, and then the movie of At World's End is just happening in the background where they're off like running around doing stuff. Sora and the gang find Jack in Davy Jones' locker and help him reclaim the Black Pearl, which they use to rescue the rest of the pirates gang, Will, Elizabeth, Barbosa, who came to the locker to try and rescue Jack. Remember, because in the movie they need Jack. He's one of the 8 pirate lords or something like that. You're really testing my memory of the Pirates of the Caribbean movie here. Again, it's funny because these characters acknowledge Sora, Donald, and Goofy. After that, they're mostly just ignored as the plot of the movie plays out. So it's pretty funny. They explain to Jack the plot of the movie that's happening. Beckett is trying to take over the seas. He controls Davy Jones. The Pirate Brethren Court has been called to answer this problem. And here we get introduced to this world's main Mechanical gimmick. You get to sail a ship around the ocean, although this is just a brief tutorial. Of course, the organization is here as well, as they're trying to escape. Luxord and Vexen come into this world in order to look for the chest that contains Davy Jones' heart. Vexen is particularly interested in Jones' existence, as he thinks it could be a clue for helping him complete his perfected replica vessels. Luxord seems annoyed with Vexen, asking him to kindly stay out of the way while he handles things here and finds the box. Our heroes return to the living world by turning the ship over at sunset, only to be ambushed by an aerial heartless assault orchestrated by Luxord. Sora takes to the skies and manages to defeat the gigantic flying pterodactyl heartless, but he lands in the ocean where he, Donald, and Goofy wash up on the nearest island away from the main cast. Surprisingly, Jack is with them, although, okay, this isn't actually Jack. It's a fake copy of Jack created by the mystical white crabs. See the movie. If you're interested in these fucking crabs, like, see the movie. I'm just telling you like how it happens. It's a fake copy of Jack, like, created by crabs. It's basically like 8,000 crabs in like a Jack Sparrow cosplay. It's a convenient excuse to have Jack be able to take parts in the events of the movie and also be the Sora's party member here. That's really the only reason why they did it this way. This island solidifies all the unique mechanics present in the pirates' world. There's island exploration that is connected by underwater passageways. There's underwater exploration and underwater combat. They discover a ship hidden in a cove on the island that becomes Sora's ship for the duration of their adventures, and this is where naval combat and naval exploration take center stage. Once Sora has his ship, he's able to explore several small worlds and like archipelagos that are dotted throughout the pirates' world. So this aspect of the world is actually really cool, and this aspect of the world lends it to like the most exploration out of all of the worlds in this game, and probably any world in Kingdom Hearts in general. This feels more of like a open world type, open zone type of exploration where you can pick and choose to go with your ship to any of these different islands, get off and explore them. It definitely feels like the most expansive level in the entire game, whereas a lot of these levels are just like very, very large zones, very, very large arenas, bigger, dwarfing anything that the game has done before. The Pirates world really feels open, and you get to go around and explore and like cross off islands on your map, and it's like an old parchment style map that you would expect the treasure map to look like. Anyways, the excitement doesn't last long because Luxord shows up waving the flag of truce on his own ship. Honoring the pirate code, they agree to speak with him, where Luxord reveals that he's looking for a box/chest, and Jack lets slip that he knows about the box. Luxord proposes a wager, a race to the town of Port Royal, with the prize the information he seeks. Jack agrees, and we race him to the port, and we end up beating him. We destroy a ton of other enemy ships along the way, but it's a trick, as Luxord feigns defeat and asks what Jack wants. Jack lets slip the location of the box. When with this information in hand, Luxord takes his leave, but before they can give chase, they have to repair the ship, which was damaged in the race in the battle, which is done by finding, you guessed it, white crabs in Port Royal. And this is how you also level up your ship. You find the white crabs in the world and you spend them on upgrades. So the white crabs are not only Jack Sparrow, but they're also basically your upgrade currency. This is where Crab Jack says farewell as he disintegrates into the mass of white crabs. He was always a surrogate of Jack, sent by the goddess of the sea to help Sora and his friends. With Crab Jack gone, Sora, Donald, and Goofy rush towards the final confrontation between the pirates and Beckett/Davy Jones. I mean, what more can I really say about this world? You get to participate in the big climactic battle at the end of the Pirates movie. The third Pirates movie, you get to go toe-to-toe with the Flying Dutchman ship, and then you get to fight Davy Jones himself in a really, really fucking cool themed world boss fight against a Disney villain, which we really haven't had in this game yet. All of the villains have been like giant heartless monster. So this is really cool that we get a fight against an actual Disney villain, and Davy Jones is a really, really awesome fight, and it incorporates like cracking stuff into it. It's just a really, really awesome themed fight. Jack gets the chest before Luxord, and Will stabs the heart, killing Davy Jones and making Will the new captain of the Dutchman. Vexen discovers this as he observes the battle, disappointed that the chest contained the actual beating heart of Davy Jones, and he leaves, saying they are chasing the wrong box the whole time. Jack and Will team up with their 2 ships to destroy the ship Beckett is on. Elizabeth gets to spend her one day on shore with Will, and as Sora goes to depart this world, he mentions how one day isn't enough time to be together. And Jack disagrees. He says one day is always enough to say what is true in your heart and to connect with those you care about, that there is always time for that. And Sora takes this to heart, steeling himself for the rest of his adventure and promising that he is going to find those who are lost. After Pirates, we return to Lee and Kairi. Kairi has changed into her new outfit provided by Master Yen Sid, and she's gotten a haircut as well to a shorter shoulder length. She's finally in her Kingdom Hearts 3 design. Kairi sits down and begins to talk to Lee about Naminé, about how if they manage to find a way to save Roxas, then they should be able to let her be her own person too. For whatever reason, this causes Lee to reminisce about the time he met Ven back in Birth by Sleep, how he only saw him one time but still counted him as a friend, and how he couldn't believe that when he met Roxas that they looked identical. Lee's feeling pretty stressed out about how their training is almost over. He's just worrying about literally everything now that their training is almost over. Kairi says he doesn't have to worry alone anymore as the camera pans out, showing us that the 2 of them are watching a setting sun. Again, their scenes together are just so adorable. Just absolutely, I love it. It's such tender moments between the 2. Not romantic in any way. You have to remember that one time Axel kidnapped Kairi, so they've come a long way in their relationship. We quickly cut back to Riku and Mickey in the Dark Realm. They've made it as far as the Dark Margin again, but the Demon Tower has appeared to block their way yet again. They aren't faring much better than the first time, with the swirling mass of Heartless knocking Riku out of the way, sending his Keyblade skittering across the shore. The Tower of Shadow Heartless then proceed to disappear into the ground, and when it reappears, it does so right under Mickey, swallowing him whole and sending his Keyblade flying. But forget about that. We're on to the next scene. That's where that scene ends. Oh no, Mickey's in trouble. Riku's in trouble. But we got other places to be right now, so we're moving on. We're going back to Twilight Town. And we transition to Twilight Town, where we see Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, has appeared out of a dark portal with Ansem the Wise, and they're both right outside the old mansion on the outskirts of town. They appear to be heading into the mansion when we see our friends Hayner, Pence, and Olette hiding on the outskirts. It appears they've been keeping an eye on the mansion, waiting for something to happen. They decide to observe the 2 Ansems, and I'm going to refer to them as Seeker and Wise whenever they're together because I don't feel like saying their whole names every single time. Seeker still seems to be searching for data on some girl that is connected to both he and Wise, and Seeker goes on to chastise Wise for what he did to Roxas and Naminé. Wise definitely feels remorseful for the way he treated both Roxas and Naminé, and declares that the only reason he still exists is to atone for what he did to them. Ansem continues to insist that he knows information about some girl that's really what he's after. Hayner, Pence, and Olette overhear this as they are hiding just outside the gate and get excited, deciding they have to intervene and save Wise from Seeker. The next sequence is hilarious. Pence jumps out from behind his hiding place to get Seeker's attention, and Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, is at this point very much annoyed that he is being interrupted by kids. When he turns to deal with Pence, Olette manages to rush in from her hiding spot, grabbing Ansem the Wise and urging him to run. Seeker notices this and turns to stop it, but then fucking Hayner jumps out from his hiding spot and proceeds to charge Seeker and fly towards him, doing a double foot drop kick. And it's hilarious to see Hayner try to kick the shit out of one of the aspects of Xehanort. It's hysterical. As you can imagine, this does not work, as Seeker summons his Heartless bodyguard, which proceeds to grab Hayner in one hand by the torso and then just chuck him towards the wall. Hayner's dead. What is he gonna do? He's being hurled at a high speed towards a brick wall, and he's just a regular dude fighting an aspect of Xehanort. Thank goodness Ex Machina saves the day. Before Hayner gets turned into a splatter on the brick wall, a Dusk Nobody comes out of nowhere to wrap itself around Hayner's body, absorbing the impact and landing Hayner safely on the ground. A bunch of Dusks then appear and surround Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, who seems annoyed at the treason by his nobody underlings. The Twilight Town trio uses this as their chance to escape with Ansem the Wise back to the safety of town. They get into the underground tunnels of Twilight Town, heading back in. They all get a chance to catch their breath, and Ansem the Wise correctly identifies them as Roxas's friends. Remember, he watched them in the digital world for how long Naminé was restoring Sora's memories. Before they get a chance to talk more, however, another organization cloaked individual approaches them in the tunnel. Pulling down their hood, it's none other than Vexen, flanked on either side by Dusk Nobodies.
My dear master, you are safe.
Who's there?
Evan, is that you? So, those nobodies were your doing.
I have been waiting for this. Gave up a normal life in order to plant myself in the organization. And when I heard Xehanort had gone looking for you, I realized it was my chance to find you as well. For you see, I too wish to atone.
Ansem recognizes him as one of his apprentices, and Vexen bows his head respectfully. He then goes on to explain how he gave up a normal life after he was recompleted to plant himself in the organization. He did this in the hopes that he could one day find Ansem the Wise, because like Ansem, Vexen too wished to atone for his sins. This is the mystery behind Vexen's disappearance, and it appears that he did this in order to plant himself inside the organization because he felt this was his best chance of finding Ansem the Wise and also making up for the harm that he did as an apprentice of Ansem the Wise, going along with Xehanort and all this stuff. He wants to atone for this. So interesting now that we have an inside man inside Organization 13 who is going to be working with Ansem the Wise, who would assumingly be supporting our heroes in this endeavor to stop Xehanort. So interesting development here that Vexen is finishing his replica research. He's now on the hero side. So it seems now that we have a potential path to Roxas's return. This is getting a little long in the tooth for these Disney Worlds, so I'll summarize the events of the Big Hero 6 world, and that will conclude our business in the Disney Worlds. Sora, Donald, and Goofy show up on the Golden Gate Bridge where they encounter some Heartless, and of course they encounter the titular hero team of the movie, Big Hero 6, which consists of Hero, Go-Go, Honey, Wasabi, Fred, and of course the lovable robot, Baymax. After meeting their new friends, they go back to Hero's garage. Sora briefs them on the threat of the Heartless, which Big Hero 6 were unable to defeat on their own. Sora offers to take care of the problem for them, but Hero and the rest of the gang insist on helping, as that's what Hero's brother would want them to do. He gives Sora a VR headset for him to wear while he explores the city and fights Heartless so that he can gather data on Sora's skills. And after spending a night helping the Big Hero 6 gang, Sora serves as a source of inspiration for all of them to upgrade their gear and skills. This is also where you're let loose in the world of San Francisco, which, unlike the previous worlds, except for maybe pirates in the game, it's one big sandbox that's seamless. It's just basically several gigantic city blocks that you're allowed to explore, and you really feel the sense of scale of like all the skyscrapers and stuff. This world really shows off all of the movement and verticality of Kingdom Hearts 3. You have more abilities now. This is the last Disney World before we get to the end of the game. So you're zipping between skyscrapers, you're running up the sides of buildings, you're fighting at ground level, you're exploring every single nook and cranny in the city. So Pirates in San Francisco really show off the scale and the movement of Kingdom Hearts 3 as kind of like these last two showpiece worlds that really show you what this game is capable of. The Big Hero 6 team finishes all their upgrades. Of course, after this, all havoc breaks loose in the city. A gigantic dinosaur Heartless begins to rampage through the city districts, along with a horde of smaller Heartless. Sora, Donald, and Goofy, accompanied by Baymax, give chase to the giant Heartless, while the rest of Big Hero 6 cleans up the smaller enemies. And this is a boss fight that spans the length of basically the entire map. of the city as you chase and fight in different districts at different height levels within the city. The gang manages to defeat all the threats, and they end the day with a celebration, gathering on top of the Golden Gate Bridge to watch the sunset. As Hiro shares the tragic backstory of his older brother, we get a brief flash where it isn't Big Hero 6 watching the sunset, but rather Roxas with his friends Hayner, Pence, and Olette. As they head back to return to Hero's garage, they encounter a new foe, a swarm of vicious microbots that have returned from Hero's past to haunt him. And who else should they be led by than the Organization 13 member that's been messing with this world, a figure that steps forward to confront our heroes. They draw back their hood, and it reveals the face of Riku. Riku? This version of Riku was the one who was possessed by Ansem back in Kingdom Hearts 1, technically making him an aspect of Xehanort. But again, this is confusing because, like, Ansem Seeker of Darkness is already here, so how did he also possess Riku in the past and bring him to the present? Possess Riku explains a little more about time travel, about how he left his heart behind to travel here, and when he got here, his heart was placed inside of a replica, meaning that the replica program was a success. The reason Riku is in this world is to see if they could recreate a heart from data, something that Sora and Yenzo are trying to do with Roxas. After fighting a few rounds with the microbots, Riku uses an old programming chip created by Hero for Baymax, combining it with the microbots and a hint of darkness to create a dark Baymax. Sora teams up with the good Baymax for a showdown across the skies of San Francisco, which Sora and Baymax ultimately emerge triumphant. Hero is able to recover the dark Baymax, meaning that at the end of this story, there are two Baymaxes. As the camera pans through the sky, and we see the title shot of the world, marking the end of our adventures here. And not only marking the end of our adventures here, but marking the end of our adventures in the Disney Worlds. With that being said, we're going to end this part here, because once we get past this, the rest of the game is kind of a full tilt sprint to the conclusion of the story here. Once we get past San Francisco, we kind of go past a point of no return, where all these events in the story start happening. We're basically hurtling towards the conclusion. So I think this is the perfect place to end this episode here. We've covered the rest of the Disney Worlds. As you can see, a lot of the stuff is just me describing what happens in these Disney Worlds. There are some Kingdom Hearts things that happen here. So throughout all of these worlds, we get organization members that are like meddling and trying to accomplish their own goals inside these Disney Worlds. I think that's a cool aspect, and I think it kind of works, although all these people just kind of like exposit and talk down to Sora, and nothing ever really happens with these plot points. It would be a lot cooler if we got to fight some of these organization members in these Disney Worlds, because as I alluded to you, we're heading into the final stretch of the game here, and we have yet to fight any organization members at all. And they've been popping up and showing up everywhere, which I guess you can already kind of surmise that the final conclusion is going to be fighting all of Organization 13. But again, we're in the back half of this game. Sora does not have the power of waking yet. We have not rescued any of the people that we've set out to rescue yet, which is Terra, Aqua, Ven, or Roxas, Xion. None of these people. We haven't rescued anybody. The entire middle chunk of this game is made up by the Disney Worlds. Part of my frustration with this is that nothing really happens in them, right? And I know a lot of the Kingdom Hearts story stuff happens at the end and in cutscenes between Disney World. That's kind of how the series has always worked. But we are in the conclusion of the series here. There's a lot of ground to cover, and with new story elements that were added in Dream Drop Distance and that were continued to be added in the mobile game as it was going on, this game has a lot to answer for, and it just feels like the minimal amount of Kingdom Hearts stuff was put into the Disney Worlds to tie them into the Disney Worlds. Again, I don't want to make accusations that I'm not 100% confident on. I really feel the heavy hand of Disney in these worlds. On one hand, I think the worlds are fantastic. I think these are the best Disney worlds we've had since Kingdom Hearts 1. I think they're the best looking worlds we've had in the entire series. All of the worlds in between Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 3, out of all those games, and this is including Kingdom Hearts 2, feel like empty stage dressing. Like things were just like where you fight heartless. Like they feel empty. They feel kind of soulless and confined. Even in Dream Drop Distance, when I praised that the level design was expanding, it still felt samey. Like Kingdom Hearts 1 had all this unique level design, and especially the last world, the end of the world, just felt like this apocalyptic fusion of all these worlds that had been destroyed. And you get nothing else like that in basically all the games leading up to Kingdom Hearts 3. This game has incredible level design. The representations of their IPs in this game are fantastic. And the care and the love that they put into making this feel like these are the actual worlds that they're based off of are incredible. But the story stuff feels very heavy-handed by Disney. They wanted their IPs represented. They wanted their stories told. That doesn't leave Nomura a lot of room to tell his story, which is very, very complex and requires time to kind of unfold as he tries to tie up all of the loose plot threads for a conclusion to this arc of storytelling that he's been telling for basically like 20 years and set up a new arc of storytelling. And even in my second playthrough, I still feel like this is the case. I thought that maybe I would feel better about this as I played through the game, but this is not the case. I actually feel pretty much the same as when I played it the first time. I think I'm definitely higher on the gameplay and the world design than I was my first playthrough. But this was the part that frustrated me the most, that we have these very, very heavy Disney worlds. I mean, for goodness sake, like nothing happens in Frozen. Nothing happens in the Frozen world. It's the movie Frozen and Sora, Donald, and Goofy are in the background. Pirates, the same thing. The main plot of Pirates happens away from Sora, Donald, and Goofy, and they just show up for the last battle. And Luxord and Vexen are here looking for the box, and that kind of ties in an interesting way, but it just doesn't feel cohesive. It just feels like the members of the organization are just running around, like wasting time until Sora is ready at this point. Not to harp on that more, we got to wrap this episode up, so let's kind of just go over quickly the things that we learned in this part. Let's talk about the most interesting thing, which is probably the stuff with Ansem the Wise and Vexen, and I guess Aqua's in there too. Ansem the Wise is basically kidnapped out of the realm of darkness by Ansem, Seeker of Darkness. After Ansem the Wise blew himself up in Kingdom Hearts 2, that was the secret movie in Birth by Sleep where Aqua meets Ansem the Wise on the shores of the Dark Margin. This is kind of just like a continuation of their conversation that they had there. We see what happens to Aqua, why they can't find her. Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, is basically responsible for throwing her into even a darker abyss where they cannot reach her. We see her literally sink into the darkness and become covered. So that's a plot point that's kind of lingering there. And now Riku and Mickey seem to be trapped as well in the realm of darkness, fighting the Demon Tide or Demon Tower, or whatever it's called. So you can only imagine that in the next part we'll get a conclusion to this saga where Aqua is in the realm of darkness, Riku and Mickey are there, but we'll have to see how that whole thing kind of wraps up. Ansem the Wise goes with Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, to Twilight Town, is rescued by some interfering shenanigans by Hayner, Pence, and Olette, and a Ex Machina save by Vexen, who we discover was only in the organization to try and find Ansem the Wise and make up for the mistakes that he had made. He wanted to help Ansem make amends for the things that they did that hurt people, essentially. So that's really, really the biggest plot point you can take away from these Disney worlds and all this kind of stuff that happens in between. Sora finally discovers what we've known all along, that Ventus is inside of his heart, his body, basically, alongside Roxas and this fourth other heart who we're just assuming is Xion now. We also have gotten these information on the Princesses of Heart over the last couple of parts, and it seems that Luxord is also looking for this black box that has been mentioned several times now, which is interesting. But again, nothing really happens in these Disney worlds as like any major consequence. Axel and Kyrie are off training, and they just have like little conversations. They're sidelined for most of the majority of the game. We reconvene with Riku and Mickey, who Riku and Mickey spend most of the game bouncing back and forth, just like trying to figure out what's going on. They like go to the Realm of Darkness, spend a decent amount of time in Hollow Bastion, Radiant Garden, trying to figure out what's going on there, go back to Yensid's Tower, and then go back into the Realm of Darkness. So the pacing of this game is kind of all over the place, and it's just seems like we're trying to maneuver our characters into places so that they can get to where they need to be by the end of the game, and there's not really a reason as to like why they're doing the things that they're doing. Riku and Mickey are just in Radiant Garden because that's where they need to be until they're ready to go back into the Realm of Darkness and supposedly rescue Aqua. And it makes it hard to kind of tie all these things together when it just feels like we're moving pieces on a board to where they need to be in order to serve the conclusion of the story. And in order to account for this complicated thing that we've introduced in the last game, Dream Drop Distance, which is time travel. Because time travel basically invalidates everything that we've done so far and just has it so that these popular characters can be around for the final confrontation. And it almost feels like all these characters are like trying to justify why they are here in this game. And it just feels very, I don't know. It most of the time I can make the Disney stuff and the Kingdom Hearts stuff mesh. This time it's really, really difficult. And I think I'm starting to understand why this game, I don't want to say it's a bad game, but I'm beginning to understand why I think this was a disappointing entry in the series for a lot of people, at least based on the narrative. Because as a fan, to see all these cool fan things happening, that Xemnas is back and young Xehanort's back and all these organization members that we've defeated are back. They feel like they're trying to justify their existence here. And having them all just be back, having them all just be like, we time traveled from the past and we're hearts and we went into replicas and now we are here because the fans really like us. It's hard to take that positively because in all the games up to Dream Drop Distance, all these characters had really good arcs. And the stories were really good, especially in the original trilogy, which I call Kingdom Hearts 1, Chain of Memories, and Kingdom Hearts 2. That miniseries, if you just silo those games off and look at the story and how that game ends, is some of the best storytelling that Square Enix has ever done. And it's fantastic. It's a fantastic trilogy, even though Chain of Memories is kind of weird. Even Birth by Sleep and 358 Days and Recoded, which 358 and Recoded get a lot of flack sometimes for not being like the best games. Birth by Sleep is by far the best of that trilogy. Give us some like really good stories that don't necessarily break what's happening or what's already been established in the canon. In 358 Days, like it's cool that they tell us that story. And sure, it adds a little bit of wrinkle with Shion in there. But it basically takes this span of time that Nomura built into the story, this year that Sora was basically out of commission, and is able to put Roxas' story in there so we learn a little bit more about him and the history of him in the organization. I think that's an important story to flesh out for people that really like Roxas' character. And even Recoded, which is a little weird, has a couple of interesting things that happen in it. But it's really when we get to Dream Drop Distance and this whole thing with like the sleeping worlds happen, and then this time travel thing happens where Xehanort can just pull different aspects of himself throughout time. It really kind of unmakes all of that story progress that had been made in the prior 6-7 games that had come before. Like, I think if you look at the first two primary antagonists of the series, Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, and Xemnas, both of them are kind of cool characters. I mean, let's look at Ansem, Seeker of Darkness in Kingdom Hearts 1. He is this fallen researcher that meddled in the essence of a heart and what the essence of a heart is. And he ran all these experiments that were like the thought of like a fallen researcher who, with the help of his assistants, like runs these really messed up experiments on people and their hearts and like the very essence of like what you as a person are, to like extract this darkness and create this heartless plague that like starts destroying worlds. That's a really, really interesting concept for a villain, for an antagonist. And it kind of ties in these themes of how far should you push things in the name of science, and Ansem Secret of Darkness is like a really compelling villain in that regard. And then if you look at Xemnas in Kingdom Hearts 2, Kingdom Hearts 2 has a lot of these themes of the nobodies, right? These left behind husks, that their hearts were removed from their bodies when they became heartless. And they're these people that don't have hearts and they can't feel. And they just want to be able to feel and be people again. Like, that's a really strong human emotion that like connects to, like, people describe feeling like that all the time. They're like, I feel empty. I feel like a shell. I feel like I have nothing inside of me. That's a lot to deal with, like depression and your mental state. And Xemnas is a really compelling villain because you can sympathize with him. Because before all this complicated organization stuff came out, where it's like, oh, the organization's true purpose is to be vessels for Xehanort, the story in Kingdom Hearts 2 was the organization's purpose just wanted to form Kingdom Hearts so that they could get their hearts back and they could feel again. And like all of Ansem's scenes in Kingdom Hearts 2 are kind of have this melancholy undertone to where it's like, oh, this guy is like really cunning and dangerous, but you sympathize with him because he wants to be able to feel. And he's always like pretending to have feelings and pretending to have emotions to like manipulate people and get his way. All of that great storytelling for all these great villains is just undone when this time travel thing gets introduced to it. And now all these villains are like running around, and like Marluxia's back, and Larxena's back, and Luxord's back. All these guys that we defeated in games past are now back, and we're trying to like justify their existence. Xigbar's the only person alongside Master Xehanort whose existence I kind of can like tolerate being back, because something happens with Xigbar that is interesting, because Xigbar is different than the other members of the organization. He's been around and known Master Xehanort the longest, even before Master Xehanort was split into Ansem and Xemnas. So he's the only one that I can kind of justify being like, oh, okay, like it makes sense that he would be back because he's been around for like this whole thing. But all these other people coming back, and in this game, it feels like they're justifying their existence, just undoes so much of the storytelling and so much of the, and so many of the issues I think I have with the way this story plays out in the end happens in these Disney worlds, where I feel like it's this big Disney kind of circle jerk extravaganza, like, look how great our properties are, and then these organization members are in there and be like, oh, look, the organization members are in there. You really like them, don't you? I don't know. I'm starting to rant, and I don't want to, because we're not at the end of the story. And the end of the story closes itself off in a really fucking cool way. It's so hype. It gives so many fan moments, but it doesn't do enough to band-aid over the fact that these issues are present. And I don't think this is Kingdom Hearts' fault. I feel like this is really the fault of Dream Drop Distance and the mobile games that added all this complicated shit in. And now Kingdom Hearts 3 has to answer for all this stuff that was added in the 10-year wait that we had for Kingdom Hearts 3. And Kingdom Hearts 3 unfairly has to answer for all of these things while trying to please a much more corporatized, much more profit-driven and efficiency-driven Disney in the 2010s. That's why it's hard for me to sit here and tie in all these plot threads together, because it just doesn't feel... It was easier to do up until Dream Drop Distance, because these plot threads felt like they were kind of naturally extending, and even the stuff in Birth by Sleep where it's like, oh, this happened before Kingdom Hearts 1, and kind of changes the perspective. There's enough stuff that happens in the series that makes those puzzle pieces fit into place. And it really feels like now we're at the point where we're really trying to jam these puzzle pieces into place to make this story make sense. And I think these Disney worlds are evident of it right here. And you can hear me tripping over my words because this rant was unexpected, and I was not expecting this to come out now. But as I was sitting here trying to wrap it all up and realizing that only really Disney stuff happens in these worlds, and really all the other events are like these characters just like running around to different places and like expositing stuff until we get to the final confrontation. But all that stuff has happened. We're at the end of San Francisco. That's where I ended it. I'm not taking it any further, like I said, intentionally, because the next event kicks off a series of events that just catapults us to the end of the game. I mean, it's basically a game in 3 acts. The introduction, the Disney Worlds, and the conclusion. Once we get past the Disney Worlds, there's nothing holding us back anymore. We've met our contractual obligation to Walt Disney. It's time to just hurdle towards the end of the game, which is like another 5 to 7 hours of just insane trying to tie up literally everything from the last 20 years that we've set up until now. And the game still has a lot to answer for. And we'll see if the game can answer for that stuff in part 4 and when we tie up everything in part 5. But for now, we're going to end this episode here. We finished our adventures in the Diseny Worlds, and we're going to wrap up the game next time. In part 4, we will finally have our showdown with Organization 13 and with Master Xehanort. It's finally time to end so many years of storytelling and set up Kingdom Hearts 4. I cannot wait, because even though I spent the last 10 minutes bitching about my complaints, the end of this game is hype as fuck, and I'm so excited to share it with you guys. But until then, if you want to catch up with everything that's going on in Guiding Keys and the Unlockables, be sure to check out linktr.ee/Unlockables podcast. All the links for all the social medias are there. The Discord, all the episodes on Spotify, all that good stuff. I have a playlist with all the episode of Guiding Keys in it. Also, be sure to check out the newly returned Unlockables Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Unlockables and support the show there for only $3. That is the only tier, is a $3 tier, and gets you access to literally everything extra I do on Patreon. Right now, the only extra things in terms of content are just vlogs. I'm doing some video vlogs to get better at like video editing and stuff like that, talking in front of a camera. So you can check out some of the video vlogs that have been uploaded there. And we do a game of the month every year. And we do a game of the month every month. So at the end of every month, we will have a week-long poll, and it will be like 4 games. You can vote on which game will be the Unlockables Discord game of the month. We will play that game throughout the month that it's voted on the next month, and we will do an episode on it on the end of that month. And it'll be a cool way to get people in the Discord server to be on episodes of the Unlockables and talk about games if they want to do that. So that's something that's brand new, up and running. The show is officially back. It's been a lot of fun. Next time is part 4 of Kingdom Hearts 3, and we're wrapping it all up. But until then, let me leave you with the customary greeting. It's not just the story of video games, it is the story of you, and may your heart be your guiding key.